Thank you. So welcome. I'm Paul Haider, a PhD student in the NeuroTMA lab at the University of Bern, and excited to share with you today generalized latent equilibrium, or a backpropagation through space-time and the brain. I know it's kind of a bold title, but it's a novel computational framework for local learning in physical systems. And I thought it would be instructive to begin with, to recap quickly backpropagation through space and time. I guess you're all familiar with backpropagation through space, but if you do not want to learn a simple a static input-output mapping, you need to take time into consideration. And if you then consider learning as an optimization problem, this means that you want to minimize the integrated cost over time, which requires you to do spatiotemporal credit assignment. And now if you work out this gradient that you want to use for learning, so the total gradient of the cost with respect to the weights, there are basically two possible factorizations that you end up with. One I call RTRL-like, or past-facing, where you basically store the influence during your simulation and then calculate a weight update at every point in time, which is online, but unfortunately it's not very efficient in terms of memory and also computation. And then there are the other algorithms, which I call BPTT-like or future-facing, where you run your whole simulation, you run the whole forward pass, and then at the very end of the simulation, you can unroll your network from time to space and do backpropagate through that, but this is inherently not online. And both of these kinds of algorithms are also not local. And a lot of people went the yellow path, so to say, and trying to make this algorithm local and trying to make the computation simpler. And the question I want to ask here is whether physical neurons can also instantiate a local online version or an approximation of backpropagation through time. And in order to do that, let's have a quick look at biology, what actual biological neurons do. And the first, I want to highlight two fundamental computations. The first one is that neuronal membranes are basically low-pass filters. I call this also retrospective integration of past inputs, denoted by this integral operator I. And the other thing, which is a little bit less known, I call prospective coding. In its output, basically the fact that neurons can estimate their future state by taking a linear combination of their membrane voltage and derivative. And I believe it was also quickly touched upon in the previous talk in terms of the predictive plasticity. And this is established also in biology, as you see on the right. And I also want to encourage you to check out my colleague Simon Brandt's poster, who shows that Hodgkin-Huxley neurons can be both prospective and retrospective. And now, taking these two ingredients, we came up with a novel framework for bioplausible computation and learning in physical systems. We take a first principles approach, where we define a neuron local energy of mismatch errors and a cost function, and then we derive neuronal dynamics from energy conservation and local online learning rules from gradient descent. And this framework then gives, of course, also a lot of experimental predictions, such as error neurons and prospectivity. And also it gives you these physical circuits for spatiotemporal credit assignment that you can see on the right-hand side. And now on my last slide, I just want to give you a sneak preview of some of the results. So learning within generalized latent equilibrium, we have both theoretical proof, so to say, where we show that the integrated weight update, which we derive from gradient descent on our local energy, approximates the total gradient descent of the integrated cost, which corresponds to the BPTT updates. And we show this also, of course, in simulation, where we simulate a system of differential equations that comes out of our framework and try, for example, to classify these sequences of one-dimensional inputs. It's a really nice small data set, but still very complicated because there's a lot of noise in it. You see that on the right-hand side, where you have these number resembling patterns in these one-dimensional input streams, and we achieve performance competitive with standard machine learning techniques such as temporal convolutional networks or gated recurrent units, but trained fully online end-to-end and with local plasticity. And with that, yes, happy to explain you more when you visit my poster tomorrow. Thank you.